Maayong adlaw, this is Stephanie Repolio. Welcome to Women's Economic Realities, a podcast series uplifting lived realities and experiences of rural and indigenous peasant women in the discourse of regenerative economic framework. Social and economic inequality falls under the backdrop of colonial oppression and neoliberalism in the Philippines. This is evident in the stories and aspirations, including memories and frustrations, of rural and indigenous peasant women participating in this project. This podcast is a glimpse of their reality. What is the important role of women for you?
It depends, because women are not all the same. Some are lowly, some are high, some are even higher, isn't it? In our community, the women have many associations. Women's organization, the Kalipi organization, they are a big help.
Ang sa amin, minsan nga parang mas mataas.
For us here, things are good, and in fact, sometimes women are given even higher regard. Higher regard for the women and the understanding that men and women should be treated as equal.
Lalaki at babae ay pantay lang.
Although there are still always those situations where they see it differently.
Pero sa amin, talagang yung mga kababaihan ay
But for us, the women are respected.
Sa aming lugar at lalo
Also because of many organizations where women have become the leaders.
Ang leader ay halos lahat mga kababaihan. Medyo napag-iiwanan na
Men are left behind in terms of leadership.
sa pagdating sa leadership.
Abay doon sa may amin na may halos ay kami
Well,
kabaihan.
those near our place, almost all of us women plant vegetables, where I am the chairman of the group Mukba.
Ay sa paghahalaman ay yung lahat.
All the members of the group, even our children,
Anak ko.
plant vegetables and the like there.
Ayan ang nagtatanim ng gulay, mga halaman, mga kung ano-ano po.
The women in my community also works for the family.
Tumutulong sa mga gawaan din
The women help both in and out of the house.
labas ng pamumuhay. Diba kahit na anong
Isn't it that in every kind of work today, there are women, from planting to any kind of work? I can say whatever men can do, women can also do.
Siya na may kung anong magagawa ng isang lalaki.
Women can also do what men can do,
Ibang laang kung
except for example in construction work.
hindi na kaya na.
Because we're getting older, but we still help in our community and society.
Sa komunidad,
Men may have heavy works,
trabaho ng lalaki.
but women are the caregivers of our homes. They are the light of our homes.
Siguro ay
I believe that it is because the women are like the guides in the family, in ways that men are not. Women have a different sensitivity. We are always sensitive to improving our lives, making our lives peaceful, especially for our children. The men do not really do that. It is usually the women who takes the initiative in having the children treated when they get sick. The men do not think of that right away. Same with sending the children to school. The men do not think of that aspect. Education for the children is foremost in the minds of the mothers. The mothers always tell the men what the needs are. The men do not think of these things. The men earn a living and give their earnings to their wives. But sometimes, the men think that they are giving enough. They do not realize it is not enough because there is so much more needed that they are not able to see. That is the importance of women.
ay yun ang kahalagahan ng mga babae.
Whether they like it or not, women are more vocal.
tapos sila yung masigasig.
And they are the ones who are very enthusiastic, very vocal in asking for their right to livelihood projects for themselves, aid, and so on.
Mga ayuda, ganyan.
We are not trying to segregate them. There are men who are also community leaders. Women can actually do more. They are the ones who are persistent, assertive, and solicit from the LGU leaders. We tell them, you have to come here. We need relief goods.
Ngunpo to kang lupay, nilikha ni makijaba. Kakmukan tiada para sa mga dumaya.
Here in our women's organizations, they have disasters committee. There was also training provided for the Women's Disaster Committee. It is the women who now report not only about disasters but any matters affecting their lives. That is their right.
In our experience here in the Cordillera.
Based on our experience in Cordillera, it is the women who first opposed very fiercely.
Yung mga, very fierce na nag-o-oppose. Actually, nagpatuloy yun yung kinakwento.
Actually, the struggles continued after the Chico Dam. It continued in Benguet when BCI expanded.
Ng BCI. Mga kababaihan din yung
BCI had an expansion. The women were the first those struggles. They laid down on the ground with their children where the bulldozers would pass.
Tinanong ko yan bakit kababaihan?
I ask, why always the women? Why are you men always at the back? They say that if the men are in the front lines, it will surely be a rumble confrontation. The women are always gentle with their dealings.
Malumanay silang at yun nga, yung usapin ng, kasi yung high respect.
Respect here in Cordillera for women is real. They are the ones continuing the indigenous lineage. That is why the respect is very high.
Kaya mataas yung respect. At yun nga.
Once you hurt a woman, the curse is on you.
Curse on you.
Kasi kahit noong
In the 1900s or even earlier, the role of women was huge and important in our struggles.
sa pakikibaka. Like for example,
For example, in the olden days when there were tribal wars, or if there was invasion of their place,
in terms of may nag-i-invade ng kanilang lugar,
actually, the women were in partnership with the men in terms of fighting. Usually, if the men are fighting in the forefront of the struggles, the women prepare their food, make sure of ample food supplies, gather stones for their weapons, additional weapons for the men, and retrieve the wounded.
Stones for their weapons, additional weaponry ng mga lalaki, tsaka nag-aatras ng mga sugatan. So it was only
It was only in the 70s when they attempted to build Chico Dam. And also at the same time, Celiophil in Abra, in the mountains, along a tribal boundary of Mountain Province and Abra and Ilocos, where the Sini Corporation took over large ancestral lands and cut the trees for logging. Then our very own Chico River too.
Yung sa Chico River naman. So mas mga babae ang marap na ano. So sila yung mismo humarap doon sa mga
It was the women who faced the soldiers, the invaders.
Sa mga itong mga invaders na ito. So
Again, this is where they bare their breast in facing the military.
And then ito sa mining projects.
And then when the mining projects in Mainit Mountain Province were about to open, this tactic was again used by the women.
Women ang nagbarikada. At walang magawa.
They barricaded themselves. The engineers and the soldiers were not able to do anything. The mining project did not proceed.
Wala silang magawa. So hindi natuloy yung mining na yan sa ano. So kahit yung role ng kababaihan in terms of
The women help in those struggles.
malaki kasi malaki din yung role nila sa pakikipag sa anong tawag doon, when they help the men, nag-organize yung mga kababaihan.
It was
at
the women who
nabuo
organized,
yung mga
and with the men formed a multilateral
parang
peace pact.
multilateral peace pact doon with other one. Kasi noon
This was
kasi
unlike
ang
before,
peace pact
where a
kasi
peace pact was only bilateral
sa
between two
dalawang
villages,
equal na
not tribes.
malaki ang ano nila doon kasi for the first time
It was quite an
ay
achievement.
nagamit
For the first time, they were able to organize the multilateral budong or peace pact.
It did not only include Kalinga.
It did not only include Kalinga,
Kalinga yan,
but also Mount Province, then Abra. So until that time, the Cordillera People's Alliance was formed. Actually, that is the root of the Cordillera People's Alliance, which was formally founded in April 1984.
Founded in 1984, no? April 1984. Ang ano doon,
It is because they came to realization that they both have the same future.
Problemang hinaharap nila.
Sa puso ng Sierra Madre, tahimik ang aming daigdig. Nang dumating ang mga gahaman, dala ay ligali.
Paano po tinitingnan
How are women treated and regarded in your community?
ang pagtutulungan ng kababaihan at kalalakihan noon?
Hindi, actually, egalitarian
Actually,
society yan.
they had an egalitarian society. In terms of men and women, they were equal. There was only a division of labor because of the biological aspect.
Pero in terms of decision making,
But in terms of decision making in all other aspects, they are equal and contribute equally what is needed.
kung ano man ang kailangan ng mga pero yung babae noon
There was a very high regard for women because of her role in childbirth.
dahil sa role niya sa panganganak, no? So kaya yung tingin sa katawan ng babae,
The body of women is sacred.
pag nasa imminent danger
Therefore,
ng babae,
if a woman is in imminent danger alone or during an invasion in the ili or her village,
ili is yung lugar, we call it ili, or village. Kahit mag-isa siya, like for example, at may imminent danger yan, talagang yung first move niya na gagawin, pag nandyan yung kaaway sa harap
the
niya,
women will just drop off or remove her clothing.
kasi wala namang damit nung araw it's just a simple wrap around.
There is only one piece, a wrap around to remove, then they would face the invading men in their nakedness.
In their nakedness na ganun. Hindi naman kailangan.
Not everything is removed, just the wrap around.
So, yan. So, pag ginanyan
When they do that, the men cannot fight
kalalpihan. Kasi,
because disgracing a woman is the worst crime that a man can commit.
na i-disgrace mo yung isang babae. Because you can also trace
You can actually trace the domestication of women started during the colonization period.
kasi nung dumating yung sinabi nga natin noon,
Because when the Spaniards arrived, they did not succeed. It was only the introduction of the Catholic religion.
pero when the Americans
But when the Americans came, they introduced the public school system education.
noong nakapag-aral na itong mga ito,
When our people were able to study, they really changed things.
process at
The process was tedious but well planned. They built schools for girls and for boys.
for boys,
Like for example, in Itugon. In Itugon itself, they built a school for girls.
ay kung noon,
Before, the boys and the girls work on the farm.
nung binil nila yun, hindi na kasi
Since the school for girls was built, they provided girls with training on how to do particular kinds of work. such as sewing, cooking.
Tapos, ang
Then, they were made to serve as housemaids.
kaya na rin yung naninilbihan as housemaids. So yung boys, yung kanilang
Even here in BSU, this is also practice.
culture and kwan. Itong mga babae,
The boys were trained in agriculture. The girls, it was different. You don't work in the gardens. It was really well planned according to their culture.
doon sa umiiral na kultura nila. Kasi ang
Division of labor was also present before, but depended on the natural capability. Mostly the women, because they bear the children, they stay in the house.
pero hindi binab
But it is not taken for granted.
tapos sila din yung
They are also the caretakers of domesticated animals. But it is not their sole responsibility, because if the men are at home, they also do these things.
ang lalaki ang nasa bahay na gagawin niya yun. So walang pati
Even doing laundry, there is no shame. Then if the children are getting older, they also help in the domestic chores.
any adult na wala talaga yung inano na ganun, hindi katulad ngayon na
It is different from today,
na kahit dito
that men are laughed at when they wash clothes.
lalaki.
Pinaslang nila ang mga puno, nilikha ni Makidya pa. Kung potok ang lupa'y inagaw sa mga dumaga.
How is education important in the development of the lives of indigenous peoples?
Among indigenous peoples,
Among the indigenous people,
I'll take myself as
I'll take myself as an example.
hirap ang buhay namin, pero yung nila, yung
Our life is hard, but the thinking of the parents is to let the children be educated.
inano nga sa kanila is dahil hindi kami
Because we are not educated, we were not able to study. That is why we have no jobs.
kaya wala kaming so-called trabaho, yung ganyan. So,
But the wish of the parents for the children is for them to study and finish school.
yung ganyan. And, syempre, gagawin nila ang lahat ng makakaya nila.
They will do everything they can to bring their children to school.
Yun, parang kumbaga hindi naman sila nag-ano ng iba pang karangyaan.
They are not wishing for more as long as their way of life in the communities are allowed to continue and they are not disturbed.
They are free to till the
Like they are
lands.
free to till the lands, because we know in the countryside, they go to the kaingin very early in the morning. They bring food with them and stay until dusk.
Babaon na sila.
Then militarization came. They are casting doubts, suspecting the farmers as to why the farmers go in the dark
Sususpect
to your kaingin and bring food with them, etc.
mga ano dyan.
That is really big disturbance to their daily routine, to their community.
Kanilang daily routine sa kanilang community. So,
Mahalaga ang edukasyon, pero yung
Education
sana
is
naman,
important, but education should be rooted in the needs of the people. Because what happened here with the education introduced by the Western colonizers was an education according to them.
ay yung education according to them. Kasi ito mismo
Because
ang
this was
nagkaroon ng
also what
pagkasira
was
nila.
used to destroy the environment.
Kasi yan ang pag-introduce nila
That
sa
was
bahay.
also the time they
Hindi kasi
introduced
nila
logging. Because the
yung
colonizers
resource
see
base na
everything
lahat yan.
as a resource to be exploited. That is according to their view. Traditions were lost.
Like
For example, their logging practice was so massive. There was no room for our traditions where you cannot just cut any tree that you do not need. That kind of tradition all disappeared.
itong ng kahoy kung hindi mo kailangan. Wala na yun. And
Then, they introduce it in education saying, "Look, we cut trees and nothing happened to us."
ganyan. Nangyari sa amin. Ito, we introduce this kind. And then, in-introduce din nila
And then,
yung
they
standard
introduce their standard of morality.
morality. So,
So the girl should be dressed fully. But back then, there were no dresses.
so So,
So when they go to church on Sunday, they even had to borrow dresses just to cover.
just to cover kasi
Because it is very immoral and very immodest to bear these kind of things.
so maraming
So there are many conflicting values there.
pero yan nga kung
But when we have discussion, some say, well, if they did not come, we would not be saved because we do not know God.
Hindi naman sila dumating, di hindi tayo na-save. Oo, kasi hindi natin kilala si God. Sabi ko, bakit?
I answer, why? Did we not have God before? We did. It is very hard. I have to say it. They are using God to serve their interest.
Ang ano kasi doon, yung aral sana.
The key here is education. To use it well.
Isa nga katulad ng sa sa DepEd, naglabas sila ng iPad, no? Indigenous education.
Like the DepEd introduced iPad, indigenous IP education. But what do they teach? To appreciate the culture of the indigenous people?
Yung culture nila, etc. Pero, ano nangyayari?
The problem is, they don't even have materials. The materials are lacking. So what they teach is just how to use the costume. Especially now, ethnic designs are in fashion.
Yung mga ethnic designs, Tapos,
Then, they teach the dances, that they are equivalent of culture to them. Because these dances are almost all gone.
kasi tapos, kahit yung
They introduce acculturation in the churches.
Acculturation supposed to be. Pero yung acculturation na yun,
But that acculturation leads to nothing. Because the mass has not changed.
yung nung misa.
It is only that they wear costumes and march the priest up to the altar with gongs. But that's it.
Pero yun lang. Kaya itong, like, for
That is why, for example, the other Sunday, the season of creation message of Pope Francis.
season of creation, na ganun. Yan, paano nila sinicelebrate sana yun? Ay, dapat
They should have focused on the message of Pope Francis, but they did not.
Pope Francis. Pero syempre, di iba na. Wala na. It is palaging sinasabi
Always saying,
environment,
take care of the environment.
alagaan ng
But how?
environment. Pero paano maalagaan?
Niluno ng ingay ng lagaring di makina. Panaghoy ng Sierra Madre, aming ina.
How important is education to women farmers, and what are your experiences about access to education?
Yung naging karanasan.
Education is really important.
Kaya lang, dito sa amin may school.
We only have elementary school here. The high school is over there, a little bit far.
Yan, important yan. High school. At saka college.
There is no college here in this town. It is located in Infanta.
Karamihan naman kahit naman.
Actually, many of us, even if we are just farmers, we strive hard to send our children to school.
Bakit kaming mga beneficiary ng
Why we, the beneficiaries of 4Ps, not included in the educational assistance of the government? Well, we need it.
samantalang kailangan nila? Dahil hindi
Because what we are receiving from 4Ps is the 3,800, which should have been monthly. But now, only given every 2 months. It is further reduced.
so tingin nila, babawasan pa.
Sana,
We hope they allow those who are at least in the line of 8 or 78.
sana,
As long as the child is interested in going to school.
interesado na mag-aral.
Because most of the scholars, their grades are in the line of 9, line of 8. What will happen to those with not so high IQ?
Medyo mababa ang IQ.
They will not qualify to be scholar? Everyone should be qualified.
Baka hindi ko kayanin yung pag-aralin yung
I may not be able to send one of my children to school. I just hope that the selection of beneficiaries by the government is fair. So those who cannot afford to send their children to school can have something to use. Because based on our experience before, it is difficult for the children if they have no education. We did not have education degrees because our parents were so poor. For me, I am just a high school graduate. It is very difficult to apply for a job if you do not have a degree. I tried applying even only in the restaurants. They told me I need a college level education. That is why it is difficult if you did not finish a degree. Education is important for every child. This is their tool, so they won't end up like us, with no job. It is difficult to find a job.
Kun potok ni yeni deni makijapa. Kun potok ni yeni de ni makijapa.